The Spirit of Maba, a journey of tradition and redemption presented by African Tales Stories. In the heart of Africa lies the village of Maba, a place rich in tradition and bound by its deep spiritual connection to the land. For generations, the people of Maba have thrived, living in harmony with the earth and the spirits that guide them. But when the balance of nature begins to falter, the village faces a crisis unlike any before. The Spirit of Maba is a captivating tale of courage, sacrifice, and the quest for redemption. Led by Jelani, the wise elder, and Talia, a young woman determined to restore peace, this story takes us on a journey into the heart of the wilderness. The villagers must confront their deepest fears, honor the spirits, and make a life-altering choice that will determine their future. In this 6-part story, Maba's survival depends on a willingness to let go of the past and embrace the unknown. With stunning visuals and a powerful narrative, the Spirit of Maba invites you to discover the true meaning of balance, sacrifice, and the unbreakable connection between the people and the land. Stay tuned for this epic adventure only on African Tales Stories. Part 1. The Peace of Maba. The village of Maba stood in the lush heart of Africa, surrounded by vast fields of golden crops and a dense forest that whispered ancient secrets with every breeze. The land was rich, fertile, and full of life, and so were its people. The villagers had lived for generations in harmony with the earth, following the old ways taught by their ancestors. Every year, the crops flourished, the animals thrived, and the children grew strong, all under the watchful eyes of the spirits that guided them. At the heart of Maba was Jelani, the village elder, a man whose wisdom was so revered that even the most difficult decisions were left to him. His skin had deepened into the rich brown of the earth, and his hair, now a crown of silvery grey, shimmered like the moonlight on the river. His hands were calloused from years of hard labour, yet there was a gentleness in them, especially when he would tend to the younger children or offer solace to those in grief. Jelani had lived through many seasons. He had seen the village flourish during years of bountiful rains and suffer during times of drought. But in all of his years, he had never witnessed the kind of unease that was slowly creeping through the village. The quiet, steady rhythm of Maba was beginning to falter. Each day, the villagers would gather to offer prayers to their ancestors. They would stand around the great baobab tree that stood at the center of the village, a tree older than any of them. The elders, including Jelani, would lead the children in songs of the past and retell the stories of their forefathers. They spoke of great hunts, rich harvests, and the spirits that had always protected them. This tree, they said, was the heart of the village. And so long as the people respected the traditions and the spirits, Maba would prosper. But something had changed. Jelani had noticed it in the last few months. The crops were not growing as they should. The rains, which had once come like clockwork, now seemed erratic and untrustworthy. The animals, usually healthy and strong, were beginning to show signs of sickness. Jelani could feel a growing discomfort in his bones, a gnawing uncertainty that whispered to him in the stillness of the night. The spirits were silent. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow over the village, Jelani sat by the baobab tree. He had just finished a quiet conversation with the other elders, but their words had done little to ease the unease that settled deep in his chest. The younger villagers, full of life and laughter, did not notice the change, but Jelani did. It was the elders who saw the small signs, the details that others overlooked. Talia, a young woman of 20 summers, approached him, her steps light and full of purpose. Talia had grown up listening to the stories of the spirits and ancestors, just as Jelani had. But unlike many of the other villagers, she had always asked questions. Where did the spirits come from? Why did the ancestors choose to guide the people of Maba? She had once asked Jelani if there was a world beyond the village, a world where things were different. She had always been curious, eager to understand more than what Maba offered. "Talia," Jelani greeted her, his voice deep and steady like the earth beneath their feet. "Elder Jelani," she replied, her voice strong yet respectful. "You seem troubled." Jelani studied her for a moment. Talia had always been perceptive, perhaps more so than anyone else in the village. She had a fire in her that was different from the others, an insatiable curiosity that both intrigued and concerned Jelani. The crops are failing, the rains are fickle, and the animals, they are not as they once were, Jelani said, his voice low, as if the earth itself might be listening. "I have felt a change in the air, Talia. The spirits are restless. I cannot explain it, but something is coming." Talia frowned, her brow furrowed in thought. "But the spirits have always watched over us, have they not? My father spoke of them often, saying they protect Maba so long as we respect the old ways." Jelani nodded. "Yes, they have always been our protectors, but something is different now. We have become too comfortable, perhaps, too complacent in our ways. We have forgotten the importance of honoring the land and the spirits. I fear that we may have angered them without even realizing it." Talia's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sun had now set completely, leaving the sky a deep purple. She could feel the tension in the air, something she had never experienced before. In her heart, she knew that Jelani spoke the truth. The village was changing, and the earth seemed to be responding. "There must be something we can do," Talia said, her voice filled with determination. "I don't believe we are beyond help. Maybe it's time to seek guidance from beyond Maba. We must find a way to bring balance back." Jelani looked at her, surprised by the fire in her voice. Talia had always been a dreamer, but she also had a strong will. Perhaps it was this very strength that the village needed. He had been reluctant to take any action, hoping the disturbance would pass on its own, but now he wondered if Talia might be right. Maybe it was time to seek guidance from the spirits, to venture beyond the borders of Maba. "We must find a way to bring balance back." Jelani looked at her, surprised by the fire in her voice. Talia had always been a dreamer, but she also had a strong will. Perhaps it was this very strength that the village needed. He had been reluctant to take any action, hoping the disturbance would pass on its own. But now he wondered if Talia might be right. Maybe it was time to seek guidance from the spirits, to venture beyond the borders of Maba. "You are wise beyond your years, Talia," Jelani said. "Perhaps the time has come for us to look beyond the village for the answers we seek. But remember, the journey is never easy. It requires great courage and trust in the spirits." Talia nodded, her resolve hardening. "I will do whatever it takes. Maba is my home. We cannot let it fall into despair." The two of them sat in silence as the stars began to twinkle in the vast African sky. The village of Maba was at peace for now, but Jelani could feel the weight of the journey ahead. He had never before been this uncertain about the future of his people. Yet, as the cool night air wrapped around them, he couldn't shake the feeling that the winds of change were already upon them. Part 2. The Mysterious Stranger. The days following Jelani's conversation with Talia were filled with uncertainty. The air hung heavy with unspoken concerns, and the once lively village of Maba had grown quieter. The villagers, though not yet fully aware of the changes taking place, seemed to feel the subtle shifts in the winds. The crops were not yielding as they should. The rivers were low, and there were whispers of strange happenings. The land that had always been generous to them now seemed to pull back, as though testing the villagers' devotion. Then, one afternoon, the stranger arrived. It was a hot and still day when the man first appeared at the edge of Maba. He walked slowly, his silhouette outlined by the blistering sun. His clothes were ragged, and his face, dark and unreadable, seemed to hold an intensity that made even the wind stop its whispering. He was alone, yet his presence felt anything but solitary. Something in the way he moved, purposeful yet reserved, suggested he had come for something far more than just passing through. The villagers stopped what they were doing, turning their eyes toward the figure. Some whispered in surprise, others with caution. Stranger arrivals were rare in Maba, and this one felt different. He moved with the air of someone who was not a visitor but someone who had a deeper, more unsettling connection to the land. Talia was among the first to notice him. She had been in the fields helping with the harvest when she spotted the man emerging from the dense brush at the village's edge. Her heart quickened, and she felt an instinctive unease, as though she had seen him before in a dream, or perhaps in one of the elders' stories. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she walked toward him, cautiously. As she drew closer, the man stopped. He did not smile, nor did he speak. His dark eyes were fixed on her, as though he had been expecting her all along. There was something almost otherworldly about him, a quiet intensity that made her question whether he was truly human. "I have come to speak with the elders," the stranger said in a low, steady voice. His accent was unfamiliar, with a slight edge of something ancient in it, as though his words had travelled from far-off lands. "I have seen the signs. Maba is in danger." Talia's gaze narrowed. "Who are you?" she asked, though she already felt an eerie sense that she knew the answer. "And why are you here?" The man tilted his head, as though considering her question carefully. He seemed to be weighing his words, unsure of how much to reveal. Finally, he spoke again, but this time there was a strange sadness in his voice. "I am a messenger," he said. "I have traveled long distances to reach this village. The land has called for me. It is time to face the truth." Before Talia could respond, Jelani appeared from the crowd, his eyes sharp and assessing as he approached the stranger. He had been watching from afar, as was his way, and something deep within him stirred at the sight of the man. There was a stillness in the air, a weight that seemed to press down on them both. Jelani knew that this man's arrival was no coincidence. He had felt it in his bones before, the approaching change, the sense of something being out of place. "I am Jelani, elder of Maba," he said, his voice carrying with the authority of years of experience. "What brings you to our village?" The stranger bowed slightly, his dark eyes locking onto Jelani's. "I come as a messenger, elder. I bring a warning. The spirits have grown restless. Your people have forgotten the old ways, and the balance is beginning to break." Jelani's heart skipped a beat. The words felt too familiar, too much like the warnings in his dreams. The spirits were indeed angry, but how could this stranger know? What did he know about the spirits? And what was his true purpose in Maba? "Explain yourself," Jelani demanded, his voice unwavering. The stranger stepped forward, and the air seemed to shimmer around him. "You are not the first to hear the spirit's call," he began. "But you may be the last to heed it. The ancestors warned of a time when the balance would be shattered, when the land would cry out for redemption. The stranger in the prophecy has come." Talia's eyes widened. "The prophecy?" she asked, her voice filled with disbelief. She had heard the elders speak of it, but she had always thought it was just a legend, a story told to the children to teach them respect for the spirits. "What prophecy?" Jelani's face remained stoic, but his mind was racing. He had heard of the prophecy, of course. It spoke of a time when the people of Maba would forget the old ways, when the spirits would withdraw their favor, and a stranger would arrive to either save or destroy them. But it had always seemed like a far-off tale, something for the future that could not be within reach, until now. "The prophecy speaks of a stranger who will come when the land is in turmoil," the man continued, his voice calm but urgent. "He will be the one who can restore the balance or bring about the end. I am the stranger, but I cannot do this alone. You must remember what you have forgotten." Jelani's heart tightened at the weight of the stranger's words. This was no ordinary traveler. This man was tied to something far greater, something beyond the understanding of even the elders. "The spirits have warned of your arrival," Jelani said slowly, his gaze never leaving the stranger's eyes. "But we are a village of tradition. Our ways have served us well for generations. Why should we trust you?" The stranger did not flinch at the challenge. Instead, he lowered his head and murmured something under his breath, something unintelligible to the others. But as he spoke, the ground beneath them seemed to hum, as if responding to his words. The air shifted, and for a moment, the breeze grew colder, more tangible, as if the spirits themselves were awakening. "I have walked the earth for many years," the stranger said. "I have seen what lies beyond your village. I have seen the lands that have fallen into ruin because the old ways were forgotten. You must make a choice, elder. The village will either return to the spirits or it will fall into darkness." Talia shivered, feeling the weight of his words settle in her chest. The stranger's presence was no longer a curiosity. It was a call to action, a reminder of the world beyond Maba, a world she had never fully understood. Jelani stood silent for a long moment, his thoughts churning like the storm clouds that had begun to gather on the horizon. He could feel the weight of the stranger's words, the promise and the warning. The prophecy was real, and the time had come for Maba to face its fate. The stranger nodded, his expression somber but resolute. "I will show you the way, but the journey will not be easy. It is a path only those with the courage to face the unknown can walk." And so, in that moment, Jelani understood. The village of Maba was at the crossroads of its destiny, and the stranger was the key to everything that was to come. Part 3. The Prophecy. The days that followed the stranger's arrival were filled with a heavy sense of anticipation, as if the very air around Maba was holding its breath. Jelani had gathered the elders and explained the stranger's words in the most solemn of tones, though there was a quiet uncertainty among them. They had all heard the stories of the ancient prophecy, but no one had expected it to come alive. They had thought it was a tale, a lesson meant to teach the villagers humility and respect. But now, the prophecy was no longer just a story. It was a reality they had to face. The stranger, who had introduced himself simply as Akin, insisted that he could not explain everything all at once. He needed the elders to understand the gravity of their situation before they could take any action. And so, Jelani, Talia, and the elders gathered around the fire at night, the flames flickering, casting long shadows that danced in the quiet stillness of the village. Akin spoke, his voice low and steady, as if sharing a secret that had been kept for generations. "You must understand," Akin began, "that the spirits of the land are not simply guides. They are the breath of the earth, the pulse of life itself. They have always been with you, guiding Maba to prosperity, protecting it from harm. But when the people forget their connection to the land, when they grow complacent in their ways, the spirits grow restless. And when the spirits grow restless, so does the earth. It begins to rebel." Jelani listened intently, his heart heavy with the weight of the truth that Akin was revealing. He had known for some time that something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, but he had hoped it was just a passing disturbance. Now, it seemed that the disturbance was far deeper than he had realized. "The prophecy speaks of a time when Maba will be tested," Akin continued. "When the land will suffer, and the spirits will withdraw their favor. At that moment, a stranger will arrive, a person of both darkness and light. He will bring with him the potential to restore the balance, or to destroy it completely. That stranger is me." Talia, who had been silent until now, could not contain her curiosity. "But how do we know we can trust you?" she asked. "You speak of the spirits and the prophecy, but how can we be sure this is real? How do we know that you are not part of the danger?" Akin turned his gaze to Talia, and for the first time, a faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "I cannot ask you to trust me without proof," he said. "I can only show you the path. You must choose whether to walk it or turn away." Jelani leaned forward, his hands clasped in front of him. "What path are you asking us to walk?" he asked, his voice low and filled with a mixture of skepticism and hope. Akin's expression darkened, and he glanced around the circle of elders. "The path is a journey into the heart of the land," he said. "You must go to the ancient sites where the ancestors once held their rituals. There, you will find the answers you seek. You will also find the key to restoring balance, but it will come at a price." Talia felt a chill run down her spine. The price was never clear in the stories, only hinted at in the shadows of the old tales. A price always had to be paid when the earth demanded restitution. "What do you mean by a price?" she asked, her voice tight with unease. Akin hesitated, his gaze far away. "The balance of the land is not easily restored. If the villagers of Maba are to survive, they must reconcile with the spirits and the ways of their ancestors. You cannot simply ask for forgiveness. You must earn it. And sometimes, the earth demands a sacrifice." Jelani felt the weight of Akin's words settle deep within his heart. He had always believed that the spirits were merciful, that they would never demand too much. But now, he was not so sure. He had always taught the villagers to honor the land, to respect the old ways. But had they truly been listening? Had he truly been listening? The elders were silent, each one contemplating the truth of Akin's words. After a long pause, Jelani spoke again, his voice firm, yet weary. "If we are to follow this path, what will we find at the ancient sites?" he asked. Akin's eyes flickered with an emotion that was difficult to read, something between sorrow and determination. "The sites are sacred," he said softly. "They are places where the spirits of the ancestors still linger. It is there that you will find the first key to restoring the balance. But the journey will be perilous. The land is not kind to those who approach with selfishness or fear. Only those who walk with humility and respect for the spirits will be allowed to pass." Talia's heart pounded in her chest. She had never been one to shy away from adventure, but the weight of Akin's words seemed to fill the air with a heavy sense of foreboding. The journey ahead was no longer a question of curiosity. It was a matter of survival. The very life of Maba was at stake. "Do we go alone?" Jelani asked, his voice steady, but the question hung in the air like an unanswered prayer.
Is this a path we must walk without help? Without the support of our people?
Akin shook his head slowly.
No,
He said,
this is a journey you must take together. The spirits will guide you, Was, but only if you work as one. The land will not accept those who come with selfish intentions. You must trust one another, and you must trust the spirits. That is the only way forward.
Jelani exchanged a glance with Talia, who nodded silently. He could see the determination in her eyes, the same fire that had burned in her since she was a child, always asking questions and seeking answers. He knew then that the path ahead would not be easy, but it was a path they had no choice but to follow. The future of Maba depended on it. "I will go with you," Talia said firmly. "I will help lead this journey, Elder." Jelani's heart swelled with pride for the young woman. She had shown courage when the rest of the village was uncertain. But there was no turning back now. They had to face the prophecy together, or Maba would face the consequences.
Then it is decided.
Jelani said.
We will walk the path together. We will seek the answers, and we will restore the balance that has been broken.
Akin nodded once, his face solemn.
The time is near,
he said.
But remember, the spirits are watching. They will know if you approach with anything but pure intentions.
The fire crackled as silence fell over the group. The journey had begun, and the weight of the prophecy hung heavily on Jelani's shoulders, but there was no turning back now. Maba's fate and the fate of the land was in their hands. Part 4. Journey into the Forbidden Wilderness. The first light of dawn found Jelani, Talia, and the small group of villagers they had selected standing at the edge of Maba, staring out into the dense jungle that lay beyond. The path ahead was not one they had ever walked before. It was a place of mystery, of ancient secrets and forgotten magic. The villagers, though initially hesitant, had agreed to accompany Jelani and Talia on the journey. They understood the gravity of the moment, and though fear lingered in their hearts, they knew that the survival of Maba rested on what they would discover. The air was thick with the scent of the earth and the sounds of distant animals. Birds cawed overhead, and the rustling of the jungle's dense foliage seemed to whisper secrets of its own. There was a palpable sense of anticipation in the air, as though the land itself was waiting for them to step forward. Akin, the mysterious stranger who had come with the warning of the prophecy, stood apart from the group. His eyes were dark, fixed on the path that led into the forest. It was clear that he knew this place well, perhaps more intimately than any of them would have liked. "The journey will be difficult," Akin said, his voice low. "The forest is not kind to those who do not belong. The spirits are watching, and they will test you." Jelani nodded. His mind was filled with thoughts of the elders' teachings, the importance of humility, of respecting the land and the ancestors. He had followed those teachings his entire life, but now he knew that the time for simple prayers and rituals had passed. Maba needed something far greater. The village needed to prove that it could live in harmony with the spirits again. It was the only way to restore the balance that had been disrupted. The group began their trek into the jungle, moving cautiously but with purpose. The trees towered above them, their thick canopies blocking out much of the sunlight, leaving the forest floor shrouded in shadow. The deeper they walked, the quieter it became. The usual sounds of the jungle, the chattering of monkeys, the rustle of small animals, had fallen silent. Only the occasional snap of a twig underfoot or the distant cry of an animal broke the eerie stillness. Talia, walking beside Jelani, couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The jungle felt alive in a way that was both thrilling and unnerving. She had never ventured this far into the wilderness before, and now that she was here, the weight of the journey seemed to press down on her chest. "Do you think the spirits are really watching us?" Talia asked quietly, her eyes scanning the shadows around them. Jelani glanced at her, his face serious. "I believe they are. The ancestors are never far from us, and the spirits of the land are always listening. The question is whether we have been listening to them." Talia nodded, though her thoughts remained uneasy. She had always respected the spirits, but now, facing the unknown, the weight of their expectations felt much heavier. As they continued deeper into the jungle, the path grew narrower and the foliage thicker. The air grew more humid, and the sounds of the jungle seemed to intensify, though it was still unnaturally quiet. Akin led the group with confidence, moving effortlessly through the underbrush as if he were part of the land itself. Jelani, despite his years of experience, found himself struggling to keep pace, and the younger villagers, though eager, began to show signs of exhaustion. "We must keep moving," Akin called back, his voice steady. "The spirits will not wait for us." The farther